Nice, very nice. Hi everyone, welcome back to my Z80 computer series. I've made a few modifications to the trainer board. You can see I've moved the fast clock circuits now so they're actually on the board, so we don't have to mess around with that separate board off to the side. So that's nice. That's going to be really handy in the future. I've actually got I've moved the dip switches as well. They used to be over here and we had 2. They're now over here and we've got 4. So now the dip switches are, number 1 is single step, number 2 is the slow clock, and numbers 3 and 4 are 2 different speeds of fast clock. I have also updated the memory address decoding, which is what I'm going to be showing you in this video. So what we're going to be doing this time is I've got some new RAM. I've got some AS7 RAM. This is AS6 RAM that I've got here on the board, and I've got some AS7 RAM which I'm intending to use for the video circuitry. That is a little bit faster access time, so that should be nice. So I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to remap the memory map to allow us to add the additional 8K of video RAM. I'll show you a small memory test program which I'll put into the EEPROM so that we can test that the RAM is working, and then finally I'll give you a little demonstration of that program running. Let's jump straight into it. So this is my existing memory map. It's as simple as I could possibly have made it, with 32K of RAM mapped in at the top of the 64K address space and 32K of ROM mapped in at the bottom of the 64K address space. So how are we going to get our additional 8K of video RAM into this? Because we can only have 64K of memory in total. So how am I going to squeeze in an extra 8K of video RAM? Well, there's a couple of different ways I could have done this. I could have employed something called memory bank switching, but I don't want to get into that topic yet. I'm going to be looking at that topic in the future, and when I do get to that, I don't want to be banking in the video RAM and banking it out again, although technically we could if we wanted to. I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to be doing that in my final design. So I want a permanent home for this video RAM somewhere in our memory map. So the only choice I really have is to sacrifice either some RAM from the top half of the address space or sacrifice some ROM from the bottom half of the address space. This is what I've decided to do. I've decided that I'm going to reduce the size of the ROM down to 16K. Now technically we're wasting 16K of ROM now because we have a 32K ROM chip on the trainer board. But I could, if I wanted to, bank switch that 16K in and out. So I could either be using the bottom 16K of the actual physical ROM chip or the top 16K of the physical ROM chip and banking it into this 16K space at the bottom of our memory map. Again, I won't do that right now, but it's something I could look at in the future. You can see in purple I've got the 8K of video RAM mapped in at address 4000, so it's spanning the range of 4000 to 6000. I think technically that would go to 5 FFF. Then we've got 8K of not used space. That's kind of wasted right now. And then the 32K of RAM is unaffected at the top of the address space. Now that not used space, we could map things into that into the future, but right now I'm not that bothered about that. So how do we actually build the circuitry to create this memory map? Well, the RAM is easy. We've not changed anything with the RAM. So all we're doing with the previous memory map was if address line 15 was high, we knew that we were in the top half of the address space and we'd activate the RAM. And if A15 was low, we were in the bottom half of the address space and we would deactivate the RAM. So there's no change there. A15 can drive the RAM chip directly. We put that through an inverter and that will give us our RAM enable signal. Now the ROM, we need to make a small adjustment. And now before we were just looking at when A15 was low, but now we have to also look at when A14 is low. If A15 is low, we're in the bottom half of the address space. And if A14 is low as well, we're in the bottom half of that. So we're actually now right down in the bottom 16K. So that's fairly easy. Both lines are low. We can just put that through an OR gate and that will give us a signal for the ROM. The video RAM gets a little bit more complicated. As the address space gets smaller, you need to start looking at more address lines to find the exact location where you want to be. So we know we need A15 low because we need to be in the bottom half of the address space. But this time we want A14 to be high, because if A14 was low, we'd be in the ROM. So if A14 is high, we're in this next 16K up. And then within that next 16K, we have to look at address line 13, which needs to be low to be in the bottom half of that 16K. So this is the circuit that I would initially propose. We can feed A15 and A13 into an OR gate. They both need to be low, so that will give us an active low signal out when they are both low. But A14, we need to look at when that's high. So as per the A15 line for the RAM, the A14 line for the video RAM, we have to run that through an inverter as well. And then we run those two signals through another OR gate to finally give us our video RAM signal. Now that circuit would actually tell us exactly when we are in that 8K of video RAM address space. However, I'm going to make a small compromise for a couple of different reasons. On the trainer board, I already have OR gates and inverters. So we already have the chips on the trainer board to do this. We're only actually using 2 OR gates, so we have 2 spares, and we're using 1 inverter, so we've got 5 spare. So the inverter's simple, there's plenty of inverters, so that's no problem. But with the OR gates, you can see from this, we need 3 OR gates, and we only have 2 spare ones available. So it would be nice if we could do this with 1 less OR gate, which is what I'm going to do. And the reason I can get away with it is because of this not used space here. There's nothing here. So we don't really need to know when we're in this region. So therefore we can ignore the A13 line. If A13 is low, we'll be in this 8K of space. And if A13 is high, we'll be in the unused space. So if we just ignore it, the 8K of video RAM will be active regardless of which space we're in. It will actually be as if the 8K video RAM is mirrored into this address space as well. If we try and read and write to it, it doesn't matter which address space we write to, we'll always be in the 8K of video RAM. It's as if it's mirrored. So we can ignore line A13. So we therefore can get rid of this OR gate here, and we can just run line A15 straight through into this OR gate, meaning we can save ourselves 1 OR gate and we can use the existing circuitry that's on the board. So I've actually done quite a bit of work on the schematic diagrams, so I will try to remember to upload the latest versions so you can download them if you want them. This is our revised page 2, which is the memory circuits. If I zoom in a little bit here, so we've got the 32K RAM and a 32K of ROM, although we're only going to be using 16K of that now. This circuit here remains unchanged. These OR gates here are combining the memory request signal with either the write signal or the read signal, and these are all coming from the Z80 CPU. So that will give us a memory write or a memory read signal. So that's all unchanged. This is also unchanged. I've just moved its position a little bit on the diagram. A15 line comes in through an inverter, and that gives us our RAM enable signal going up there to the chip enable on the RAM. This part here is new. Previously we had the A15 line directly connected to the chip select of the ROM chip. But now you can see both the A15 and the A14 are going through these inverters. A14 through the inverter and then through this OR gate, combined with A15, gives us our video RAM signal, and the non-inverted A14 with the non-inverted A15 going into this OR gate to give us our ROM signal. One last thing I've added to this diagram is this header here. I'm breaking out the memory read, the memory write, and the video RAM to a new header. That will be the yellow header on the trainer board. And we can use these three signals to control when our video RAM should be active. So I've got a small program here to test our new memory. It's not very big, so I'll go over it line by line. Got the normal bin2 statement for our 32K EEPROM and org0. This program is going to sit right at the bottom of the ROM. Some setup code. I'm loading the stack pointer with 9,000. Now remember, our normal RAM starts at 8,000, so I'm putting the stack pointer in our regular RAM. Then we've got load HL with 4,000. That's the start of our video RAM. And I'm loading register B with FF. Now I'm going to write 256 bytes of data to the video RAM. Maybe only writing 254 bytes, but we'll see that later. So write loop, I'm loading the memory address that's being pointed to by HL with register B. So the memory address will be 4000 and the data will be register B, which is FF. And then I inc HL, and this instruction will decrement register B. So we're increasing HL, so we're working up the memory addresses, and we're decreasing register B, so we're working down the data. And that's going to loop around writing those bytes to the video RAM. Then I'm going to reset a couple of the registers. I'm going to set HL back to 4000 again, back to the beginning of the video RAM. And the loop counter, which is register B, I'm going to reset that back to FF so it can perform the same loop again, but this time we'll be doing reading instead of writing. Scroll down here a bit. So I'm loading register D with the contents of memory address that's being pointed to by the HL register pair. So the memory address we're pointing to is 4000. So we'll read from that and put the contents into register D. Load C, 0, that's our first output port. And then I'm going to out C, D. So the value that we read back from memory will get output to the green LEDs. Then inc C, out C, L, and inc C, out C, H. We've seen that many times before. That's just outputting the memory address to the red LEDs. Now this is a delay that I've added because the program's running very fast. It would be too fast for us to see what's happening, so I've put in a deliberate delay. I can put in here into register E how many times I want to go around the delay loop. So I've specified I want to go around that loop 20 times, and then I just call delay. We'll have a look at the delay loop in a second. But the main read loop here is doing the same as before, increase HL and decrease register B. So we should perform the same loop, this time reading instead of writing, and we'll be outputting the contents to the display so that we can check that the values are what we expect. And then finally we're done. We'll do a halt. We'll just see the red halt light come on to let us know that we're finished. This is my delay loop, not really important, but I'm just pushing BC because my main loop is using register B. I need to preserve that. Then I'm loading B with E. If you remember E, I put in the value of 20 into register E. That's how many times you want to go around the loop. But I'm going to use B for the loop counter, so I'm just transferring that to register B. This is the actual delay loop. There's a couple of knops. They're just there deliberately to slow things down. And then we're going to loop around the loop however many times we specified. Finally, we pop BC and return. So all it's really doing is writing some bytes to the RAM and then reading them back and putting them on the display so that we can see that we was able to store the data in the RAM and able to read it back again. Reset's still not working. Nice, very nice. Let's see that again. So starting at 4,000 and counting up. And if we look at the data over here, we can see it's counting down. I'll do that one more time. So this is counting down from FF down to 0, and this is counting up from 4000 to 40FE. I think the reason it's going to FE rather than FF is the way we're using the B register to decrement. It's starting at 255, decrementing down to 0, but once it hits 0, it drops out of the loop, so we don't get the last update on the display. But that doesn't really matter. It's proving the concept. This is actually proving quite a few things are working. Not only the RAM, we've proven that we can actually write to the RAM using our new logic, and we can read it back and get the correct values as we expect back. So the RAM is working. It's also proving that our fast clock circuit on the board here is working. I think I could show you that. If I show you, sort of get an idea of the speed, I'll show you one more time. So this is the slower of the two fast clocks. And if I switch it over to the faster one and give it a reset again, you should see it's much faster. Let's do that one more time. Yeah, much faster. So the fast clock circuits are working fine, and also the glue logic on the RAM for the address decoding on the RAM is working with our new logic. So that's nice. Everything working as expected. Okay, we'll leave this here. I think what I need to do moving forwards is I need to start really building up the VGA circuit again, this time incorporating the RAM rather than the ROM. So that'll be for a future video. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time.